Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Arsenal take on Preston North End in the EFL or Carabao Cup, depending on what you want to call it, tonight. Can the Gunners progress through to the next round? What sort of team will Mikel Arteta pick given the injury problems, given the fatigue that we saw kick in with a number of individuals against Liverpool, and of course with those big league games, of course, away at Newcastle and away at Chelsea on the horizon. We've also got a trip to the San Siro coming up where we take on Inter Milan. Lots and lots of football coming our way. So how does Mikel Arteta manage this one? We're going to get into it right here on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. Hey everybody, how are you? Hope you're having a great Wednesday so far. Arsenal are back in action. It always feels like after a big game like the Liverpool one, there's so much discourse around Arsenal and there's so much kind of to unpack after each and every one of those games. You almost kind of like need a break. Like you need a longer period than what we've been given to kind of get over the emotional trauma that you were put through during that game. I mean, it was a decent enough result considering the circumstances. I really do believe that. At the time when I walked away from Emirates Stadium, and as you'd have sort of picked up, if you're a patron and listen to the match day reaction bit, I was quite frustrated with the fact that we'd only taken a point. Having led for as long as we did, having gone into the last 10 minutes in front, to then lose essentially 2 points was really, really disappointing and really, really frustrating. But over time, again, sort of looking at the circumstances, looking at what we were left with on the pitch, looking at how we had to start the game with players missing, but then also had to contend with people going down like flies in game, which was to be expected when you consider that we'd pushed some of those players right to their kind of barrier in terms of what they were capable of fitness-wise on that occasion. So I don't think it was the worst point in the world. I don't think it was a good point. I don't think it was a bad point. That was the name of the post-match podcast. It was good point or bad point. And at the time, initially I thought bad point. Then the next day I thought good point. And now I'm kind of somewhere in between. I don't think it was a good point and I don't think it was a bad point. I think it was an okay point that we should just take and just move on from. Okay, on today's pod, we're going to talk about this game coming up against Preston North End this evening. Remember, if you're a patron, you'll get some match day reaction from me. It'll probably be about an hour, maybe slightly longer after the full-time whistle tonight, just because I'm on commentary duty for Arsenal TV. So when you watch back the highlights on the Arsenal social media accounts or via the Arsenal app or via the Arsenal YouTube channel, it'll be me alongside Jeremy Ali Adier on commentary duty. So really, really looking forward to that. And then we'll bring you a full podcast, of course, on Thursday morning where we'll delve into everything that happened, how it went, etc., etc. How do I feel about tonight's game? I don't want to sound defeatist, right? Because I've been saying that we're still very, very much in the Premier League title race. And I believe that we are. And I believe that come the end of the season, it will be a lot closer than maybe what it feels right now. But I do believe that this is a massive season for Arsenal in the sense of they need to win some silverware. And as a result of that, my want to see us progress in the Carabao Cup is greater than it normally is. Normally, I look at this competition as a bit of a meh competition. And, you know, if we can win it, great. But if we don't, who really cares? Is it the be-all and end-all? Actually, the FA Cup is held in much higher esteem for me. And also, our ultimate goal has been over the last few seasons to get back into the Champions League, and the Carabao Cup / EFL Cup never ever offered that. It never offered that. So I've always had this at the bottom of my priority list, and I think a lot of people probably still feel that way. But as I say, because of that need, I think, for Arsenal to go out, make a statement this season and show that all this progress under Mikel Arteta isn't for nothing. We need to go out and at least put on a good enough display to get us over the line. I expect Mikel to make changes tonight. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think we're going to go there and we're going to score 5s and 6s and all that. I think we're going to go there and we are going to probably go with a changed team and maybe have to ride some difficult periods at times, right? Preston North End at Deepdale, they're a championship side. They're not in as good a form this season, by the way, at the start of this campaign as they were last season. But that doesn't mean that it's a game that we can take for granted. There'll be a good atmosphere there, night game. Whenever a club like Arsenal roll into town, it is a big old occasion. And so I think we're going to make changes. I think we should make changes, but I also don't think we should go disrespectful, if that makes sense. I think this is going to be a game that poses its challenges. But it's just about getting through tonight. And I think this is the problem that we've had over the last few weeks, right? We've maybe got caught up in how good performances have been and not always considered the context in which we're playing, the injuries, the players missing, etc., etc. And where the result is ultimately what will count come the end of the season, on a lot of those occasions, with the exception of Bournemouth, we've picked up a decent result, right? We beat Southampton, we beat Leicester, we beat Shakhtar, but the way those games were spoken about, you'd think that Arsenal got nothing from them. Well, we did. The results are ultimately what we'll look back on. And this is one of those nights where I'm not fussed about the performance. I just think we need to go there and get the job done. We've got some big league games on the horizon. It hasn't got any easier for us in terms of what our fixtures look like. And we go to San Siro as well to face Inter, which isn't going to be easy. They're one of the best teams in European football at the moment. Simone Inzaghi is a great manager. It's a very daunting and difficult place to go, as we know from past experiences. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Before I get into the team that I would select for tonight's game, I do just want to bring you up to speed with some of the updates that Mikel Arteta provided yesterday in his press conference ahead of this game. He talked Timber, he talked Calafiori, he talked Gabriel, he talked Martin Odegaard. So I'll bring you up to speed with what he had to say regarding those players. A few hellos though. AFC81 is with us. Hacker, Yontura. The legend that is Clive Palmer is in the live chat as well. He says, say hello to Jeremy from me, Harry, top guy who knows his footy. He absolutely does. He's a great guy. And yeah, you don't play at that level if you don't have a bit about you. So yeah, absolutely. And good to see you in the chat, Clive. Big hello to Jan Tora, who says, hit the likes or Harry will haunt your dreams. Yes, please do hit the like button. I won't haunt your dreams, but I prefer that you hit the like button. Yeah, I feel like we need to catch up on YouTube with where we are on the audio side of things. And yeah, likes certainly help with that. Big hello to Jesus, to Steve as well. Lots of you in the live chat, which is great to see. Okay, let's talk about what Mikel Arteta had to say on those players that I mentioned. So Gabriel seems okay. He said that the issue that he suffered against Liverpool was much better the next day. There was no real concern that it was anything serious. I didn't think it was at the time, to be honest. It felt like he had a bit of a dead leg from sort of getting hit in the back of the knee, and that it was something that he would be able to recover from, I beg your pardon, in time. It just wasn't the case that he was able to recover in game. So, yeah, I expect him to be back available for selection, but I'm not sure that I would play him tonight. I think I would leave him out, and you'll see who for when I come on to tell you guys the team that I'd pick. With regards to Riccardo Calafiori, I posted on X straight after the Liverpool game when I spoke to Mikel Arteta post-match. And it's kind of the way it works, right? So I'm there for BBC London. You've got BBC 5 Live there who had full commentary of the game. And then you had Talk Sport there. So the way it works, for those that don't know, and I don't want to bore you with this, but it's just a quick explanation, is when they go into the flash interviews, they'll do all the TV ones, then they come into the radio one. And when they go into the radio one, the rights holder for the game, so the one out of TalkSport or BBC 5 Live that had the rights to the game, will ask the first set of questions, then TalkSport will ask the next set of questions, and then being local radio, I get to come in third. So I wasn't going to ask stuff about necessarily the game and the performance, because most of that had been covered off in the 7 or 8 questions that he'd answered before that. So my questions, 2 of them, were how late did you leave it before you decided that Timber and Saka were ready to play? And he said the night before, that he'd spoken to those 2 players the night before. And my second question was, you mentioned on Friday going into this game that Riccardo Calafiori was due to have some more scans. Has he had them? And what was the outcome of those scans? And he said he's going to be out for a few weeks. And that was consistent with what he said in yesterday's press conference with regards to the Italian as well. On Jurrien Timber, it looked like cramp to me being at the Emirates on Sunday. And that's exactly what it was. By the sounds of things, Mikel Arteta wouldn't commit to saying the word. He just kept saying he couldn't continue, but there's no fresh injury there, which is obviously positive news. But again, Would you risk him tonight? Probably not. And then the other one that he was asked about, of course, was our captain, skipper, Martin Odegaard. There was a report, wasn't there, a little while ago, maybe a few days ago, that said that Martin Odegaard was due to return to the grass this week. And that was kind of put to Mikel, who said he's been on the grass for a few weeks. So it goes to show, doesn't it, that when we hear things, we're often behind the curve. Like for the club to let something like that out, they normally do it later than, when the reality is, and you often find things out a little bit later. And so you got to assume, I think, when you hear reports like that actually we're a lot further down the progression line than maybe that suggests. And this is a classic example of that. He said that he's not really competed with the rest of the team in training yet. That's kind of the next stage. But again, is that Mikel Arteta telling us what he wants us to know rather than what the actual reality and what the accurate, up-to-date information is? Really, really difficult to tell. But it sounds to me like there is a good chance that Martin Odegaard could be back before the international break, which is really, really positive. We need him. We're in desperate need of him. He's our biggest creative force, along with Bukayo Saka. The combination, the pair of them are just so, so important to us. And we've really, really suffered without them in that department, I believe. And, for a while we found kind of temporary solutions by playing sort of two false nines and tried to go down that route. And when we were playing difficult away games like City, like Spurs, and then opted to lean on our defensive strength, that was okay and that worked. But in the games where we're required to be a little bit more on the front foot, and where our defensive performances have dipped a little bit as well, because we've conceded a fair amount of goals in recent games. We conceded against Leicester, we conceded against Southampton, we conceded against Liverpool. It hasn't been as kind of plain sailing in that department as it was during that period where we were defending really, really well. So that's dropped off a little bit. The attacking play's dropped off a little bit. So a combination of the two things has meant that we're winning games. We're still predominantly winning games, but we're winning them by finer margins, which means the risk of not winning games is always greater. I know that sounds like a really stupid and obvious thing to say, but that's kind of where we are at the moment. So I'm desperate to see Martin Odegaard back, and it looks like he's not a million miles away. In terms of the team then that I would pick to start up at Deepdale against Preston North End this evening, we know that our cup goalkeeper, Neto, who we signed this summer, is cup tied, so he can't play. I don't think that I would play one of the kids away at Deepdale. We did it against Bolton. We did it because we were in a situation where there was concern over David Raya's fitness. We didn't really want to take a gamble on Raya with some huge league games coming up, so we opted not to do that, not to gamble on his fitness. And I think that was the right thing at the time. But away at Preston, I don't think I would play a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, or anybody for that matter that is inexperienced. I think you need to go with David Raya, and I don't see why a goalkeeper can't play 2 games in a week. At right back, I would go, I think I'm going to go with Ben White. That's what I'm going to go with at right back. I'm going to bring William Saliba into the team, and I can hear people sort of shouting back down at their headphones saying, why on earth would you play William Saliba in this game? Well, he didn't play at the weekend, and I'm sorry, but Gabriel is the one that needs the breather right now if you're going to, only play one of them. And I don't think with Calafiori out, with Timber's fitness the way it is, with Tomiyasu missing, I don't think we can take too much of a gamble, not on the defensive side of things. So I'm going to play Saliba alongside Jakub Kiwior. And remember, this is what I will do, not necessarily what I think Mikel's going to do. At left back, I think it's clear based on what we saw the other day that Lewis Skelly is someone that Mikel Arteta trusts at the moment. He threw him on ahead of Alexander Zinchenko the other day, which I thought was really, really interesting and actually really telling about what he thinks of the Ukrainians' level right now. But the argument that I faced when I said, wow, I like Lewis Skelly and I think he deserves the opportunities. But the criticism or the backlash I faced from people in the comments section when I said that was actually quite telling that he played him over Zinchenko was, well, Zinchenko isn't fit. Zinchenko isn't up to speed. Well, how do you get Zinchenko up to speed if he can't play in games like this? So I think there's a chance and this is just my opinion, that Mikel maybe goes with Zinchenko. And I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world, really, to put Alexander Zinchenko in a game like this. Give him 60 minutes, let Lewis Skelly play half an hour, whatever, and try and build him up again, because it's clear with all the injury problems that we have, we're going to need him. But I think based on what we saw at the weekend, where Mikel turned to Lewis Skelly before Zinchenko and trusted him in a game of that magnitude, I think this is a game where he starts. In the centre of midfield, I bring Jurrien into the side. Alongside him would be Mikel Merino. He's played a lot less football than Declan Rice, for instance, and I still think is a little bit short of where he needs to be fitness-wise. So there's no reason why he can't play that game. And then on the right side, in that almost Martin Odegaard position, I'm going with Ethan Nwaneri. So that's my midfield. Jorginho at the base, Merino left 8, Nwaneri right 8. On the right-hand side, I'm playing Raheem Sterling. On the left-hand side, I'm playing Leandro Trossard. And through the middle, I would start Gabi Jesus. So that is my Arsenal side to face Preston North End at Deepdale tonight in the EFL Cup. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. Let me just run through it once more for those of you that are listening on the audio platforms. Raya in goal. Neto's cup-tied, remember. White, Saliba, Kivior and Lewis Skelly would be my back four. Jorginho, Merino and Nwaneri are my midfield trio, with Trossard on the left, Sterling on the right, and Gabi Jesus through the middle. So that's what I would go with. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let's go over to the live comments and see what you guys are saying. For once, people agree with me. What have I done here? I've pressed the wrong bloody button. There we go. That's what I meant to do. So for once, people are agreeing with me. What have we got here? What have we got here? What have we got here? Lots of you saying hit the damn likes, people. Yes, please do. Haylor as well, just adding to the context about the sort of fixtures and the games that we got coming up, highlights that obviously we play Newcastle at the weekend, but we play them in the early match on Saturday, which makes it even more, even more imperative, I think, that the players that are a doubt get a bit of a breather tonight. Look, I'd have all those players on the bench, by the way, because if things start to go south, you want to have that capacity to change it. So I'd have them all on the bench and available and ready. SC Ramble 68 says, Harry, given that Jurrien Timber seems to be lacking fitness, would you give him 60 to 70 minutes? No, I wouldn't. Not in tonight's game. I'd rather get sort of 70, 80 minutes out of him at the weekend. I think there have been a couple of occasions at the start of this season where Jurrien Timber's run out of gas, and I think that's a long-term consequence and effect of the injury that he had, basically the knee injury. He's still not quite at his best, and it's going to take time, months even, for Jurrien Timber to get back to where he wants to be. What I would say is that he came into the weekend's game clearly not fit and clearly on the border of being available and not available, and he just about made it. And so to see him gas out the way he did, it didn't come as any surprise to me. It isn't something I've got major worry with or concern over. So yeah, I would leave him out tonight. I'd have him on the bench, as I'd have for example, Gabriel, if he's available. I'll have Kai Havertz on the bench. I'd have Declan Rice on the bench, Thomas Partey on the bench, Bukayo Saka. I'd have them all on the bench because you just never know in ties like this, and you want to have that capacity, as I say, to make sure that you can prevent any slide south that you're against. And you want to get through in this competition. As I've said, it's important that we win silverware this season. I really do believe that. And I've never really been one of those guys that goes, silverware or nothing, silverware or sack him. That's never really been me. But when you think about the steps that we've taken forward as Arsenal Football Club under Mikel Arteta, the idea of not winning anything, of not crowning that off sooner rather than later, is only going to increase the pressure on him to do it the following season. And then people start to get grumpy and people start to get tetchy. And then you end up going back into that negative atmosphere that we had at Arsenal Football Club for such a long time, and people don't want to admit it, but it was. I used to go every week. I would turn up and hear everybody moaning and complaining and whinging about the slightest things. That's gone right now, but it's not going to be long before that creeps back in if this project doesn't, as Mikel Arteta once said, go boom. It needs to. Wesbird says, agree, Harry. Like that team, says Colonel Jesus. Robert says, Harry, I'll go with that team. I'll back you as our next manager. I don't think I could take that job, even if it was given to me, with the stress that would come with it, because I care too much. But I'd love it. No, I'm kidding. As if they'd ever look at me as a manager. What else have we got? Wesbird says, I like it, but I think Zinchenko needs game time, even if it's midfield. I think Zinchenko needs game time too, because I think he's going to be required to play a role. But in the midfield, I'm fine with him playing there. But Mikel's never really done that, has he? Like, not for any significant amount of time. So I just don't think he sees him as that. CT says, solid, sensible team there. H, good rotation without losing too much. Yeah, that's kind of how I saw it as well. Halo says, isn't there anyone from the youth side worth mentioning in this match? I think there are players within the first team squad, mate, that need the minutes. And so I always think you need to work with those guys and prioritise those guys first. St. Francis says, I would rather Jesus played right. He's better there than the 9. His terrible form requires him to play for the team more with the assists instead of the goals people think he needs. He's not potent up top anyway. I think for me, I think there's a world in which, like, if you play Trossard tonight, where those two can swap and rotate positions, and that could be something that gives us joy. And listen, Jesus, when he plays centre forward, he goes drifting, he goes searching. Jesus really needs a goal, guys. He really needs something, because the effort's there, the work rate's there. He's been left out of the side now. He's getting bad minutes in terms of coming on in certain game states where things maybe aren't as good as they should be, or you want them to be, which makes it tougher for him to have an impact. But tonight is a chance, if he does start, that he needs to take. And there's been a few of those in recent times that he hasn't taken. And that's been, I think, for a lot of people, a big frustration. What else have we got? Halo says, would you rather win the Carabao Cup or would you rather reach the semi-finals of the Champions League? Me, personally, I'd rather get to the semi-finals of the Champions League. But I know what the narrative will be if we don't win something. It'll be, oh, Mikel Arteta spent all those hundreds of millions of pounds and he's had how many years at the football club and he still hasn't won silverware, because that's the kind of lazy analysis that we're plagued by these days. So I would say Champions League, but I know a lot of people would say Carabao Cup because they're of that mindset of, well, if you don't win something, what's the bloody point, etc., etc. So, yeah, my choice would be for Arsenal to go on and make the semi-finals of the Champions League. I think that would be a bigger achievement than winning the Carabao Cup. Okay, just a quick reminder of the team that I'd pick, and then I'll finish off with a score prediction. For those of you just joining us on YouTube, my 11 to face Preston North End tonight in the Carabao Cup is David Raya in goal, Ben White, William Saliba, Jakub Kiwior, and Miles Lewis-Skelly across the back. Jorginho, Marino, and Nwaneri would be my midfield trio. The two wingers would be Trossard and Sterling, and Gabby Jesus would be my striker tonight. So that is what I would go with. In terms of a score prediction, I'm going to say Preston North End 0, Arsenal 2. That's what I'm going to go with. I think we go there. I think we win. I don't think it's going to be pretty, as I say. I don't think it's going to be an amazing watch. But it's all about the result tonight. Let's get through. And then let's turn our attentions to that big game coming up at St James's Park at the weekend, before we then go to the San Siro, followed by a game at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. It's a busy, busy couple of weeks for the Arsenal. We need to make it count ahead of the next international break. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, great to see so many of you with us live. If you're watching this back later, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check us out on Patreon. And if you're listening on the audio platforms, reviews. That's the name of the game right now. I need them. Get them in. Review the podcast. Let us know what you think about it. If you could do it with a comment, they always help as well. So thank you so much in advance for that. And I'll see you all on the Matchday Reaction Pod over on Patreon shortly after the full-time whistle tonight. Preston versus Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. Can we do it? I think we can. I'll see you all on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.